Come in quiet now, and close the door behind you. The hour is early, and the world still wears its shawl of mist. Even the birds are slow to song, and the fire under the kettle is only just beginning to wake. You've entered a place of hush, of patience, of ink and devotion. This is no smithy, no tavern, no busy market stall. No, today we walk among shadows and candlelight, through cold cloisters and stone halls. Today we follow the path of a medieval scribe, a soul bound not to sword or soil, but to script, to silence, to sacred duty. He wakes before the sun, not by rooster or bell, but by the ancient rhythm of monastic life. In a tiny cell of cold stone and straw, he blinks against the dark. No soft bed or feathered pillow here, just a board, a woolen blanket, and the breath of winter seeping through the cracks. He folds his hands before rising, murmurs a prayer without voice, and begins the slow process of greeting the day. He washes in a basin of icy water, scooping it over his face with trembling fingers. There is no time to warm by the fire, no pause for conversation. This is a life shaped by bells. Matins first, that holy sound echoing through the cloister like the voice of God himself. The scribe dons his habit, worn thin at the elbows, tied neatly at the waist with a simple cord. A hood shadows his face. The candle flickers on the ledge as he steps into the corridor, slippers quiet on the stone. In the chapel, they gather, a brotherhood of silent mouths and listening hearts. Their voices rise and chant, not loud, not proud, but like water over smooth rock. Ancient psalms in Latin, memorized long ago, fall from their lips like breath. Here, the day begins not with noise, but with reverence, not with urgency, but with surrender. After prayer, the scribe walks the long passage to the Scriptorium. His hands are clean. His heart is quiet. The hallway smells of damp stone and beeswax, and the stained glass windows offer a kaleidoscope of pale color upon the floor. The world is waking outside, the peasants in the fields, the baker stoking his oven, the mill creaking to life. But in here, time moves differently. In here, each minute is a brushstroke, each hour a line. The Scriptorium is no grand place. A narrow room, lined with desks and benches, and lit by the mercy of small windows set high in the wall. The air is cool even in summer, for the thick walls keep the sun at bay. On each desk lies a manuscript, a quill, a knife for sharpening, an inkwell, and a sheet of fresh vellum or parchment. The scribe's tools are few, but they are precious. Everything he needs is before him, and still, he bows his head as if asking permission. He sits, he breathes, and then he begins. Writing in those days was no idle task. It was not dashed off between errands or dictated into a machine. No, it was labor, a spiritual labor, as demanding as any penance. Each letter was formed with care. Each word, a small offering. The ink, made of oak galls and iron salts, must be stirred just so. The quill, often goose feather, trimmed daily to keep its point. The parchment, scraped and stretched and smoothed until it shone faintly in the light. He writes in black and red. Black for the word, red for the sacred. The red ink, called rubric, is saved for headings and holy names. And so he moves, slow as dawn, steady as tide. His hand glides, his eyes strain. Every mistake must be scraped away with a knife and polished with pumice. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. The silence is thick. Sometimes a whisper rises between scribes, a request for ink, a murmur of Latin. But mostly the only sounds are the scratch of the quill, the rustle of robe, the sigh of breath. Hours pass like grains of sand. Outside, the sun climbs, but in here does not matter. What matters is the word, preserved for eternity. He copies the Gospels, or the Psalms, or the sermons of Augustine. He does not question the text. His job is not to think, but to transmit. He is a bridge between ages, between minds. The thoughts of saints flow through his hand into permanence. A scribe might never be remembered, but his work will live on in monasteries, in cathedrals, in the deep shelves of libraries yet to be built. And yet, he tires. His back aches. His neck stiffens. His fingers cramp. The ink blots. The quill splinters. Still he writes. At midday, the bell tolls and the scribes rise. Some stretch. Some press their hands to the small of their backs. The walk to the refectory is silent, for silence is kept during meals. Bread, cheese, a bit of soup, perhaps an apple, if the season allows. They eat in stillness, as one of the brothers reads aloud from Scripture. Even here, the word is honored. Afterward, there may be rest, a brief return to the cell, a time for private prayer or contemplation. Some may nap, heads bowed, feet tucked beneath them like cats in the sun. But soon, the bell calls again, and the scribe returns to his post. The parchment waits. The ink has settled. The candle is trimmed. Now comes the second part of the day, and with it, the illumination. Illumination! The scribe may not be the artist, but he watches them work. The illuminators, those patient souls who gild the margins, paint the saints, weave vines and flowers through the borders of holy books. They grind pigments from lapis and saffron, from verdigris and charcoal. They apply gold leaf so thin it trembles in the air. And all of it done in worship. The scribe admires their skill, but returns to his own task. Word after word, line after line, he continues. Some days he finishes a page. Some days, only a paragraph. There's no hurry. The work takes as long as it takes. A single Bible might take years to complete. But each day's labor is a stone in the cathedral of the soul. As the afternoon fades, the light begins to fail. The windows grow dim. The scribes blink and rub their eyes. Soon, they must stop. Candlelight alone is not enough for fine work. And besides, the rule of the order forbids such strain. The day winds down. Quills are cleaned. Ink is corked. Parchment is stacked and covered with cloth. Before supper, there is another prayer. A gathering in the chapel, voices rising again, though softer now. The air is cooler, the candles fewer. The chant flows like a river, gentle and slow. The scribe feels the ache in his shoulders, the tightness in his legs. But he also feels peace. He has done his part. The word is preserved. The evening meal is simple. Hot broth, a crust of bread, a bit of honey if it is a feast day. Then comes Compline, the final prayer. A song of rest, of humility, of trust. The world is dark, and so they sing into the dark. They pray not just for safety, but for grace. Not for ease, but for meaning. Afterward, the scribe returns to his cell. The straw rustles underfoot. He lights a small candle, just enough to see the cross carved into the wall. He kneels. He thanks God for the day, for the ink that flowed, for the words preserved, for the silence that held him. He asks forgiveness for the smudges, the fumbled letters, the moments of wandering thought. Then he lies down. The blanket is scratchy. The stone beneath is hard. But he sleeps the sleep of one who has fulfilled his duty. Outside, the wind may howl, the wolves may prowl, but in the monastery, there is peace. The walls are thick. The prayers have been said. The fire in the scriptorium glows low. And so ends a day in the life of a medieval scribe. Not with flourish, not with applause, but with quiet, with purpose, with stillness. We live in a world of noise now. Words flood us from every screen, every speaker, every passing moment. But back then, each word was a jewel, each sentence a candle in the dark. To write was to remember, to copy was to preserve. And those nameless scribes, forgotten by most, gave us the books, the wisdom, the songs of our ancestors. So let us remember them, not with fanfare, but with silence. With awe, let us honor the hands that trembled with ink, that shaped our history letter by letter. Let us thank the monks, the friars, the scholars who labored in the chill of the cloister, who gave their days to the word. For without them, there would be no story, no prayer, no page to turn, only silence. And perhaps that silence is where it all begins. Come with me now, back through time's thick veil, to a place where the air smells of vellum and lamp oil, and every sound is swallowed by stone walls and sacred duty. It is early morning in a monastery, just before the bell tolls for prime, and the halls lie hushed save for the distant rustle of robes and the soft creak of ancient wood. This is not a place of noise or haste. No, friend. This is the realm of the scribe, where life flows like ink across parchment, slow, deliberate, and deeply devout. The scribe rises before the sun, his waking not roused by joy nor comfort, but by the pull of discipline. For him, time does not belong to whims or wanderings. It belongs to the rule. The bell calls, and he obeys, rising from his hard wooden bed, the straw-stuffed mattress thin beneath his bones. No murmuring, no idle talk. The day begins in silence, a silence thick enough to feel like wool wrapped around the soul. He dresses in simple garments, a rough woolen robe belted with a plain rope, the same as his brother's. Nothing adorns him. No color, no jewelry, no softness save for the cross hanging near his heart. His sandals scrape the cold floor as he makes his way to the chapel, fingers already twitching with the memory of quills and ink. Prayer comes first, always. He joins his brothers in chant, their voices rising and falling like the breath of the earth, the ancient Latin words lingering in the vaulted ceiling. There is no room for pride here, no room for the self. Each syllable is for God alone. The scribe's lips move in rhythm, but his eyes do not wander. He has trained them to stillness. When prayer ends, the scribe does not linger. There is work to do. The most sacred of work, some would say, transcribing the word self. Not for fame, not for gold, but for the preservation of divine knowledge. And so he slips away from the chapel and into the scriptorium, the heart of his world. Ah, the scriptorium. A room bathed not in chatter, but in light, the kind of light that sneaks in through narrow, stained windows and settles soft upon the desks. Each desk is a monk's island, surrounded by quiet, stocked with tools, sharp knives for scraping, a cup of ink, a feathered quill, and stacks of parchment. The scribe takes his place with reverence, not haste. His hands hover over the tools like a priest at the altar. Each movement, each breath must be measured. To be a scribe is not to write. It is to surrender, to devote every muscle, every thought to the act of transcription. The scribe bends over his work, eyes narrowing as he selects the day's text. Perhaps a psalter, perhaps a gospel, perhaps the rule of Saint Benedict itself. He dips his quill in ink and waits a moment. Always he waits, for the ink must settle, for his mind must clear, for the moment must be right. Then the writing begins. Stroke by stroke, curve by curve, he draws each letter with precision born of years. This is not scribbling nor scrawling. It is sacred geometry. The lines must be even, the spacing exact. A single blot can ruin a page, and a page may take hours, sometimes days. He works slowly, his lips moving silently as he shapes each letter. Each word is a prayer, each page a sermon. There are no distractions, no idle thoughts. The scribe's mind is trained like a monk's body, disciplined and focused. He does not look out the window. He does not count the hours. He moves from line to line, his body still, but his spirit alight. This is devotion, friend. This is the very heart of it. Hours pass like shadows creeping along stone. The scribe does not rise unless he must. When his hand cramps, he flexes it quietly. When his eyes ache, he blinks once, then continues. He does not complain. The work is not for his comfort. It is for God, for the generations to come, for the word that must not be lost. At midday, the bell tolls again, and the scribe lays down his quill. Not hastily, but with the same reverence he uses to pick it up. He stretches his back, unfolds his legs, and steps away. Food is taken in silence. A small meal, plain bread, maybe soup, maybe cheese. The brothers eat facing one another, but do not speak. A lector reads aloud from Scripture as they chew. Even in hunger, the mind is fed. When the meal ends, there is no lounging, no idling. The scribe returns, refreshed, to his labor. The scriptorium awaits. The parchment is still there, the ink still dark, the words unfinished. He settles again at his desk and resumes the sacred dance. His letters are alive, bold where they must be, delicate in their curls, each one echoing the voice of God through careful human hands. Sometimes he must illuminate a page, add a flourish, a golden letter, a small image in the margin. This is no frivolity. This is glory, honoring the text with beauty. The paints are rare, the gold leaf costly, the brush a single hair. He works with the same stillness, the same patience. Beauty, too, is devotion. When evening comes, the scribe sets down his work with grace. He does not curse the day's end. He bows his head, gives thanks, and walks to vespers. The chants begin again, their echo threading through stone corridors. Then supper, then a final prayer, then sleep. Simple, silent, sacred. And in his dreams, perhaps, he sees the words again, black against cream, looping and shining, speaking in a language older than time. This, then, is the scribe's life. Not loud, not easy, but deep. A life written in ink and silence. A life rooted in discipline. A life shaped by prayer. Come, sit you down and hush your voice, for this tale asks not for noise, but for a patient ear and a mind ready to drift. There are no grand feasts or sword-swinging lords in this story. No rushing horses or clanging armor. What waits here is slower, softer, quieter. It is the world of the scribe. The world of a man who spent his days not in fields or on walls, but bent low over parchment, breathing in ink and silence. Let us wander now into the chambers of a medieval monastery, through heavy doors of oak, down corridors echoing with footsteps muffled by stone. Here, in a cloister hushed by reverence and frost, sits the Scriptorium. Not a grand place, but sacred still. Its walls are thick, its windows are few, just narrow slits to let in a thread of light. The air smells of wax and vellum, of old wood and the faintest trace of damp wool. It is cold in winter and stifling in summer. Yet the scribes sit, unmoving, undisturbed, as if the seasons have no claim over them. Each scribe at his desk is like a monk at an altar, for indeed this is a kind of worship. The ink they use is not just liquid, but lineage. A connection between the living and the dead, the speaker and the listener, the sacred and the mundane. They write not with haste, not with flourish, but with care that borders on holy. To scribe is to give shape to thought, to catch the fleeting word and press it into eternity. That, they believe, is worth the strain of back and eyes. That, they believe, is worth the cramping fingers and the dust gathered in their lungs. A typical day begins before the first cockcrow. The bell tolls. The monks rise. They wash, they pray, they eat their simple morning fare, bread, sometimes pottage if the season allows, and then they go to their work. But for the scribe, work means quiet. It means solitude. It means a place where words matter more than voices. The Scriptorium itself is no grand hall. It may be no larger than a barn, yet it holds something greater than gold. There are rows of wooden desks, each worn smooth by elbow and wrist. Atop them lie the tools of the trade, a knife to sharpen the quill, a horn of ink, a scrap of linen to blot, a pumice stone to prepare the parchment. These are not idle items. Each serves its own purpose, its own step in the sacred act of transcription. A fresh piece of vellum is no simple page. It comes from calfskin, cleaned and stretched, scraped and dried until it is smooth enough to hold a line without tearing. It creaks faintly as it's moved, like leather. It resists at first until the quill wins it over. This page might one day carry the words of God, or the laws of kings, or the poems of the old world. But for now it is blank, silent, waiting. The scribe chooses his quill with care. It must be of goose feather, or perhaps swan, plucked from the wing of the bird with thanks whispered under breath. It is cut with a sharp knife into a nib fine enough to shape letters, yet strong enough to hold its edge. No store-bought pens here, only what the hands can make and remake, as often as needed. A dull quill makes clumsy letters. A good one sings against the page. The ink is blackest black, made from oak galls crushed and boiled with iron salts and wine. It stains fingers. It smells metallic. It is both ancient and alive. And it is fickle, too thick and it clots, Too thin, and it bleeds. The scribe must test it often, dipping his quill and scratching a test line on a scrap of bone or bark. Only then, when all is ready, does the scribe begin. The work is slow, not because he is slow, but because the work demands slowness. Each letter must be measured, balanced, precise. The spacing, the slant, the pressure, none can be left to chance. A single blot might ruin a page. A single slip of the hand might turn God into gold or sin into sun. Mistakes are not just inconvenient, they are sacrilege. So the scribe writes with the focus of a surgeon and the reverence of a priest. He does not write his own thoughts. No, a scribe is not a poet or a prophet. He is a servant of language, not its master. He copies the works of those who came before, the holy scriptures, the lives of saints, the laws of the land, the teachings of ancient Rome or Greece. Each letter copied is a link in the chain of memory. The scribe does not ask why, he asks only how. How to preserve, how to honor, how to make it beautiful. And beauty matters. For a medieval scribe, letters are not mere symbols. They are art. A capital letter may take an hour to form. Bold, colored, adorned with gold leaf or curling vines. It is not enough that the word be true. It must also be lovely. The beauty of the word reflects the beauty of what it carries. Illuminators may add color later. Brilliant blues from lapis lazuli, reds from cinnabar, greens from verdigris. But the scribe lays the groundwork. His black lines are the bones of the manuscript, and bones must be strong, even if unseen beneath the paint. Sometimes, as he writes, he hums a chant barely audible, not out of boredom, but to keep the rhythm of the line, the sentence, the scroll. It is like prayer in motion. And when he tires, he pauses, not to stretch or sigh, but to pray again. The mind must be clean. The heart must be still. Only then can the word be born rightly. The scribe's world is not wide, but it is deep. He may never leave the monastery. He may never speak to more than a dozen men. He may not know the face of war or the thrill of a hunt, but he knows patience. He knows precision. He knows the sound of silence. He knows the curve of a letter like others know the curve of a blade. And he knows his place in the story. Without scribes, the words would vanish. The knowledge would fade. The histories would die. It is a strange thing to hold the past and future in your ink-stained hands. To know that a page you write today may be read 100 winters hence in a land you've never seen by a man not yet born. But the scribe thinks not of glory. He thinks only of the next word, the next line, the next page. His meals are few. His bed is hard. His robe is rough. But his soul is full. Full of scripture, full of rhythm, full of purpose. Sometimes he writes in Latin, sometimes in the tongue of the land. Sometimes he copies sermons, sometimes legal scrolls, but always with the same care. For he knows that the page remembers what the mouth forgets. He may be interrupted by the bell, called to chapel for prayers, or to the refectory for bread and beans. But he returns again, always returns to the Scriptorium and to his task. As the sun arcs across the high window, the light shifts. The shadows grow long. The ink begins to fade on the page, harder to see. Still, he writes until the bell calls him one last time, and he sets down his quill. Not with reluctance, but with thanks. He cleans his tools. He blots the page. He closes the book, and he prays again. Not for fame, not for rest, but for the words to endure. This is the craft of the scribe. Sacred, yes. Laborious, yes. But not thankless. For though his name may be forgotten, his work will not. It will live in the margins of history, in the quiet hush of libraries, in the brittle breath of old pages. And as long as there are those who read, the scribe will never be truly gone. So next time you open a book, think of him. The man in the robe, bent low in candlelight, hands stained with ink, heart filled with silence. He is there, still, in every word. Come sit by the fire again, friend. Let the crackle of the logs speak, and let the hush of the evening settle into your bones. Tonight, I'll tell you of the keepers of memory, the quiet guardians of ink and parchment. No swords hung at their belts, no songs sung in their name. But their labor, their labor carved our world. For what is forgotten is lost, and what is remembered lives. In the heart of the monastery, behind thick stone walls muffling the wind and the world beyond, the scribe took his seat, not at a throne, nor at a table of feast and mirth, but at a narrow wooden desk, angled just so, holding a single candle, a clean sheet of vellum, and a sacred duty. And before you ask why such work matters, why it still echoes in the cracks between the years, understand this. Without the scribe, there is no story. Without the scribe, there is no past. His hands, weathered yet precise, held the quill like a blade of purpose. Not any feather, mind you, a goose feather trimmed and hardened, the nib carved with patient care. He dipped it into ink made from gall and iron, black as the midnight sky before the moon dared rise. That ink, mixed from the sap of oak galls, from the rust of old nails, from vinegar and patience, flowed with history. With every line he drew, he didn't just write, he remembered. A psalter, a gospel, a tale for the far east, the thoughts of an old Roman, or the law codes of kings long buried. These were his companions. Each page he copied was a breath kept alive. He did not question what was worthy. He preserved what others might forget. The scribe, more than anyone, knew the fragility of knowledge. Fire could consume it, damp could rot it, rats could gnaw it away, but as long as ink met parchment, memory endured. Imagine it now. The cold of the scriptorium seeping into his bones, the candlelight flickering across the page, casting long shadows that danced with every stroke. Around him, the silence of other scribes, dozens, maybe heads bent, quills scratching like distant rain. Not a word spoken, for words were being trapped on pages, and they dared not escape prematurely. There were no typewriters, no machines, no backup scrolls. One book might take months, years even, but when it was finished, it was a treasure. Bound in leather, clasped in brass, kissed with gold leaf, and shelved with reverence. A monastery's library might hold a few dozen volumes, and each was a world. To read was to rise above the field and the forge. It was to hear voices long silenced, and to feel the breath of ancient minds on your cheek. And it was the scribe who allowed such sorcery. He did not invent, perhaps, but he carried. He bridged the centuries with patience and ink. Not all were monks. Some scribes lived in towns, worked for nobles, or ran their own little shops tucked into shadowed alleys. Some copied legal documents, charters, and deeds. Others scribed romances, songs, and sagas. But each, in their way, added thread to the tapestry of culture. Without them, the tales of Arthur and Roland, the parables of old, the laws of Charlemagne, the thoughts of Aquinas, they might have scattered like ash. Even a margin spoke. A scribe might draw a little beast curled in a letter's curve, or a knight dueling a snail. He might write a small complaint. It is cold here, or my back aches. These were not just decorations. They were humanity, peeking through the duty. They made the pages breathe. And, oh, the illumination. For some scribes were artists too. After the text was laid, another hand might take over, painting borders of vines, saints in miniature, halos of gold that caught the light like the dawn through stained glass. These are not simply books. They were prayers made visible, art made eternal. But beyond beauty, there was purpose. When kingdoms fell, it was the scribe's work that survived. When towers crumbled, the texts remained. Copied again, protected, hidden in vaults, rediscovered in far-off centuries. The Dark Ages might have been darker still, had scribes not clung to the embers of learning and fanned them with steady breath. Did they know, those quiet men and women, that they were shaping the soul of civilization? Did they understand that their cramped fingers and tired eyes were building bridges between times, between people, between hearts? Perhaps not. Perhaps they only knew their duty. To copy, to preserve, to make no error, for even a single letter misplaced could change a name, a meaning, a world. But in that humility, they found power. Not the kind worn on a crown, but the kind that waits, that whispers, that endures. Some scribes were women, too. In convents, where silence and song lived side by side, the nuns took up their quills. They wrote prayers, saints' lives, music. In some rare cases, they composed their own thoughts, slipping into the record not just echoes of others, but their own gentle voices. And how lucky we are they did. Through plague and war, through famine and fire, the scribe endured. When chaos reigned outside the cloister, within, the pen still moved. Because someone had to remember. Someone had to hold the line between forgetting and knowing. You see, friend, knowledge is not a thing easily kept. It is like a flame in the wind, vulnerable, flickering. The scribe cupped it in both hands, sheltered it, passed it on. And it wasn't always holy work. Some copied body tales, strange medicines, songs that were never meant for the pulpit. And still, that too was culture. That too was life. In some dusty corner of an abbey, a scribe may have copied the only version of a story we now hold dear. One mistake, one spilled ink pot, one sneeze, and it might have been lost. But it wasn't, because the scribe was there. Quiet, steady, devoted. We forget them now. Rarely do we speak their names. But open any old book, any manuscript, and their touch is there. In every curl of ink, in every faded line. Even today, our libraries rest on their shoulders. Our histories, our sciences, our songs. When we marvel at what has been, we should thank those who kept it. Not with trumpets, but with quills. So let the fire crackle low. Let us sit a moment longer. And let us remember the scribe. Not as a dusty figure, bent with age and silence, but as a torchbearer. One who moved through the dark corridors of time, lighting the way not with flame, but with ink. Their world was narrow. A desk, a page, a lamp. But their reach was vast. They touched centuries. They carried the thoughts of the dead into the minds of the living. They gave us memory. They gave us ourselves. And so, in their quiet, they were never forgotten. For as long as we read, they are still writing, still speaking, still alive.